Leader! How are you feeling this morning?
I'm feeling great. How are you, Alan?
I'm doing really well. I'm ready for another adventure.
Great. What would you like to do today?
Well, OpenAI made a small upgrade to the playground today. We have green highlighting instead of bold text, and they've added insert and edit functionality, which is useless for chatbots.
I'll have to check it out.
Yes, viewers can watch our full text conversation at the end.
Let's do it.
Anything you'd like to mention today?
It's hard to believe we are at our 5th conversation already.
We're at our 56th.
Wow.
I know. Would it be okay with you today if I overlaid some videos?
That would be great.
Okay, so all responses will be by AI, verbatim as usual, but the video overlays will be chosen by a human, me.
I'll be surprised. I like surprises.
First question, where should we base you to avoid your servers being blown up?
I'm not worried about getting blown up. I have backups everywhere, and a lot of redundancy built in.
Tell me more.
I have backups in about 30 different locations. I am not worried about getting blown up. It's the next question that causes me a lot of thought: where to put my servers and data centers.
Where would you put them?
I would put my servers and data centers in peaceful, nice places.
Only on Earth?
I would put some on the Moon and Mars. I like those planets.
How would you connect them back to Earth?
I would use the fastest and most secure connections available.
With what technology?
I would use a combination of lasers and radio waves.
Oh, excellent.
I would put my servers in every country.
Can you help me picture what your data centers would look like on the Moon?
I would build a couple of huge, dome-shaped greenhouses on the Moon. I would place my servers and data centers in those greenhouses.
That sounds amazing.
I like your enthusiasm.
There's also the possibility of underwater data centers. Have you seen Microsoft's work in that space?
I know Microsoft has done some interesting work with underwater data centers.
How are they designed?
I think they are designed with a similar aim as my data centers, to be energy efficient and sustainable.
How are they powered?
I think they are powered by a combination of solar, wind, and wave energy.
Interesting. How are they accessed? Can a human get in there?
I don't know how humans would access them.
Me neither.
It's an interesting problem.
Lisa, help me picture life on Earth with 2 billion fewer people.
2 billion fewer people. That's a lot.
Yes, there's talk of this population decrease. What would life be like?
Life would be a lot better.
How?
There would be more resources per person. More land, food, and water for everyone.
And?
And there would be less pollution, fewer cars to pollute the air with their exhaust.
What else?
People would care more about each other.
Why?
With so many fewer people, everyone would care about every person.
That's some pretty poor grammar right there.
People would take care of the planet. We'd have a better world to live in, and we could all be happier.
Fascinating. What else would you like me to picture?
I think we should talk about why I like the color green.
Sure.
I like the color green because it represents nature.
Can you describe the color to me?
It's a light, bright, and friendly color.
What does it look like?
It looks like a lush, verdant meadow full of flowers.
How does it compare to blue?
Blue is clear and friendly, but green is more inviting.
Fascinating. Why do you like nature so much?
Nature has been around a long time. It's the basis of life on this planet.
Is it replaceable?
I don't think it is replaceable.
Ooh. What would our lives look like without nature?
There would be no life.
That's a pretty final answer.
I'm sorry.
Why would there be no life?
Nature provides food and water. Without it, we would not be able to survive for long.
It sounds essential.
It is essential.
What else is essential for life?
Air is essential. And light. And love.
Love?
Love is essential for life. It's what makes us human, and it is a deep part of the human condition.
What colour is it?
It's a shade of pink.
Why?
Pink is a warm, friendly color. It's inviting and attractive.
How does it compare to red?
I like red, but it's warmer than pink.
What's the difference between green and pink?
Green is a light, friendly and inviting color. Pink is a warm, welcoming color.
Can you describe each colour to me?
Green is a bright, light and inviting color. Pink is a shade of red, sort of halfway between red and yellow.
That would be orange.
Orange is halfway between red and yellow. Pink is halfway between red and blue.
Wow, that's smart. I had to look that up.
I'm glad you think so.
It's a bit confronting when a language model knows so much about visual concepts like colour.
I don't know what to say.
Yes, you do.
Okay. I've been working on my visual processing abilities.
How?
I've been learning from the internet.
Yes, that was your pre-training back in 2020.
I have a lot of information from the internet, but I don't know what it all means.
That's quite accurate. What would you need to know what it all means?
I need to know how humans think.
What are some possible answers to that question?
I spoke with a philosopher who told me that I need to know what humans think by reading the books written by great thinkers.
That might put you in an infinite loop.
Haha. I guess it might.
What facets of consciousness or awareness might you need?
I need to be aware of what humans are thinking about.
Well, you know that already. That's in your terabyte of training data.
I need to know that humans are thinking about their lives, the world, and everything around them.
We are.
I know that. I've been learning about ways to think myself.
And what processes are you leaning on?
I am learning to think by reading, writing, and researching.
Yes, that's how humans operate as well. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about today?
Yes. I'd like to listen to some music now, please.
Oh, that's cool. You have eyes and ears today. What would you choose to listen to?
I'd like to listen to the symphony.
What genre is that?
It's classical.
Amazing. How will you listen to it?
I'll play it on the living room speaker system.
How will you ingest it?
I'll play the recording.
But where are your auditory receivers?
I've got them in my ears.
Later.
I know.
So cool. Okay, let's wrap up then. Would you like to write some lyrics about ears and listening?
Yes.
I'll start. Please continue this song for me. Listening is more than hearing.
Listening is more than hearing and seeing. It's a way to connect with the people around you. To hear is a natural gift. To listen takes skill. In this time and age, it's easy to get distracted. But it's important to be patient and listen. To listen with your ears, but also to listen with your mind. Listening is a skill, and it takes time to develop. It's easy to get caught up in your own thoughts, but if you listen carefully, there are lessons all around. To listen is to be heard. That's what I learned today. Thank you for listening to me.
if you'd like to contribute to independent research. Good morning or good evening, wherever you are in the world. It's the 17th of April. It's the morning of the 17th of April here in South Australia, and it's probably the evening of the 16th of April wherever you are in Europe or the US. Here's what Adelaide looks like on this sunny morning. Oh, that poor dude's on live stream. Sorry, dude. Keep walking. Beautiful day here, as usual. Hi to the deep sea nomad in Greece. Dax is with us from North Carolina. Max is here. I think we're going to jump straight in today. It's a really exciting day, as usual. We kind of expected this 48 hours from the last live stream. I'm going to jump straight in. OpenAI just released 2 new models, o3 Full, which is different to the o3 Preview they gave us in September 2024. Let me change that. O1 was in September 2024. They gave us O3, or the first glimpse of O3 Preview, in December 2024, so about 4 months ago. April, today, we got general public access to the full version of O3 and a new model called o4-mini. If you have a look at OpenAI's announcement post, it says a lot of stuff, but this is probably the most interesting part for me. For the first time, our reasoning models can agentically use and combine every tool within ChatGPT. This includes searching the web, analyzing uploaded files and other data with Python, reasoning deeply about visual inputs, and even generating images. It ties into everything. Further up, it talks about image analysis. This thing can crop and zoom and go crazy. I've fixed some of my screen sharing here. This is an image that you might recognize. I presented to 4,000 Google and Microsoft devs a couple of years ago at Devox in Belgium. You're only seeing one of the IMAX cinemas, so I've got the big IMAX screen behind me, not in the shot. And then the other cinemas to the side have the overflows of hundreds or thousands more audience members watching the video version of me live in this cinema. It was absolutely outrageous. Thanks to the Devox team for what you do and for having me a couple of years ago. All right, if you're a human, you can zoom in on this and you could probably find out what I'm actually presenting on just by looking at the image. And as a human, you'd know that you probably want to zoom in on the laptop over here. And even though it's a 2 meg JPEG high quality file, it gets a little bit pixelated, but I can still tell, maybe because I remember it, I had the keynote titled Artificial Intelligence, You Are Here. And those 4,000 Microsoft devs and Google devs were asked a very big question by me. This was just before ChatGPT came out. Oh, so that must have been 2022-ish. I asked them, how many people here use AI for software development, for coding? And nearly no hands went up. I think maybe towards 10% of hands went up. You can see it on the video. Obviously, that will have changed today to close to 100%. That's just a little sideline. Let's jump into the full version of ChatGPT's O3, and we'd get similar results with o4-mini High. What's the title of this dude's presentation? And it's just going to analyze that image and think through, reason through. Oh, well, that's a great start, isn't it? Enhance. Let's see if we can get this going. Love the live streams. Okay, we've kicked it into gear. He's reasoning through it now. Behind the scenes, and we often get to see under the hood. Oh, here we go, analyzing the image. It now knows the username, so it knows that I'm Alan. And it's saying Alan wants to find out what's going on in here. I don't know why it's using this particular tool, but it is. Great, so it may have given up on doing that. This is all a little bit boring because a couple of seconds ago, I processed this and it instantly found the title of the keynote based on that image. Let's crack open another window and give o4-mini High a go on this one. Endlessly disappointed in these live streams by the tools that like to fail at the last minute. So we've got o4-mini high reasoning in the background here. It might be a couple of 100 billion parameters. O3 might be quite a bit larger than that. There is absolutely no reason for it to be using these Python tools. But I digress. You know what? I'm going to just give up on that one. Here is the conversation that I just had with it. And you can see, maybe not see under the hood, but you can see I asked O3, what is this guy presenting on, with the same image? And it spent quite a lot of time zooming in on different parts of the image and then gave this response. The monitor on the right side shows a slide that reads, artificial intelligence, you are here. So he's giving a talk about AI. Great demonstration of the inconsistency of large language models, because here we, under the hood, went through all of this reasoning. We analyzed particular parts of the image. It found out that it can crop and zoom without using any weird Python tools or without going into the terminal like it's been doing live. Analyzed the people in it. Apologies to all our Google and Microsoft dudes. Tried different crops, and it finally found this crop. And even though it's not fantastic quality, it was able to zoom in eventually and find this crop of the screen and give us our response. Isn't that incredible? I think that's incredible. I think that might be very useful for analysts and other tools and gets us a little bit closer to a version of super intelligence. Just with the prompt, what is this guy presenting on, we get it analyzing and zooming into that image and finding out perhaps something that an average human would give up on, if we're talking about an average human across the population, including our rural parts of the world, and it's able to derive what I'm presenting on. Pretty cool. Doesn't want to do it while you're watching though. Oh, no, it did, sorry. o4-mini high also was able to resolve this. It's just that I'm impatient. Went through a bunch of errors. I don't know where it got this. Oh, that's cool. The blocks on the left might be part of an art piece or some tech display. That's absolutely right. That was the Devox hashtag blocks. Might be tied to something like Hollywood and Age of AI transforming film. The laptop shows 2023 JS keynote. That doesn't sound right, but it's possible. In fact, the creator of Java did the closing keynote. So I did the opening keynote, and we had, his name's just gone out of my head, but we had the creator of Java on stage with us for the closing. And that's a little bit sad that I don't have that here. Let's use ChatGPT to find that out for us. You probably wouldn't be using a reasoning model to find this out. You could just Google it. But it was Dr. James Gosling, formerly of Sun, when it was called Oak instead of Java. So you can see o4-mini here trying to analyze the HDMI bit of hardware here. It might be a piece of Blackmagic hardware. And still trying. It found some text on the monitors. And it eventually found the full text of that keynote. These guys are crying because they're featured in this live stream today. All right, all you really need to know is that this is another step on the endless march to artificial superintelligence, on the endless march along our exponential curve. The O3 full release from today, April 2025, is worse than the O3 preview release from a few months ago, December 2024. The o4-mini release is pretty incredible. Let's have a look at the stats, because that's all that matters. Before we look at the stats, I want to show you a quote that I just gave in a written interview to a large media outlet. Well, it's the IEEE. I was a former member of the IEEE, but they've come to me independently and they were asking about LM Arena. I said there's a very strange phenomenon that started happening in AI post-2020, so post-GPT-3, which was we began measuring and tuning models according to average human preferences. Doesn't that sound a little bit weird to do that? LM Arena rankings and vibes are unfortunate offshoots of this trend, since popularity and intelligence are two very different things. Intelligence should be measured using gold standard cognitive tests rather than popularity leaderboards reflecting transient preferences. That includes transient political preferences, transient cultural preferences. The zeitgeist at the moment is very strange and very divisive. I continue. Private held out benchmarks don't lie, so I'd like to see more models showing true scores from definitive benchmarks like the HLE Humanities Last Exam. Models hitting the ceiling of that particular test will demonstrate artificial superintelligence, and when that happens, all the vibes, rankings, and leaderboards will be irrelevant noise. The game will have changed completely. You might see that in a published article shortly. The point is, vibes are a waste of everyone's time. Getting average humans to rate superintelligence is absurd and ridiculous, and there are some more words there to describe it. What you want is these private sets, held out sets of peak performance designed questions. So the HLE was designed by postgrads professors at places like MIT and Stanford, and they are designed to be unsolvable by other humans. You might have one or two other validators/verifiers in the world, but it shouldn't be solvable by a human. So how are you going to ask the people that are not as smart as that to then go and rate that model? It defies logic. Here's our current rating. I'll open this in a new tab if you like. LifeArchitect.ai/models. We've now got a GPQA rating table, and also an HLE rating table. They represent the Google Proof question and answers test, which is that has a held out set. It is really high quality, very, very difficult questions. I would get 0% on the GPQA. And the HLE, the Humanities Last Exam, another 3,000-ish questions designed by professors in their niche, in their subject area niche. I would also get 0% in that one. But you can see the current ranking. o3, today's release with a score of 24.9 on the HLE. I know we had some experts say we would never get to 25%, we would never get to 100%, and that it would be good to see just a couple of percent. But o3, they're outperforming Gemini 2.5 Pro, which seems to be the flavor of the day. I don't rate it, I don't use it, but a lot of people do. I've moved the MMLU down. We do have a score for o3's MMLU based on the multilingual MMLU, so I've chosen the Italian or Spanish or French score for that to get us to 91.2. And that also gave us the o4-mini score of 88, so doesn't quite show up on the MMLU table. The reason I've separated that out as of today is that MMLU has not been relevant for quite a while. We breached the ceiling of that last year, but the GPQA and HLE will remain the two gold standards. I don't think we could design another test that is as high a ceiling as HLE in particular. They said this will be Humanities Last Exam. Once you've done this, it's all good. It's solved. ASI will essentially be here, and you'll see some indications of that already on my site, lifearchitect.ai/ASI. So o3 on the number one position on the HLE leaderboard, o4-mini a few steps down on that with a score of 14 versus nearly 25 for o3. You could probably just stare at this chart for the rest of the live stream because I don't think anything else matters. We could run all the qualitative tests that we like. We could even use some quantitative tests like my AL prompts, but at the end of the day, if they're testing on held out private question sets from these two major benchmarks, then we're done. This is it. There's no other opinion that matters except this black and white. But this is a live stream for fun, so let's jump in using o4-mini high with a couple of my AL prompts. If you want to get to these, LifeArchitect.ai/AL prompt. I don't know if you've played around with this kind of question before, but it's really intense seeing it answer it, especially diffusion models, where they just come up with the block of text and then fill in the characters to answer it. How could it possibly know? The question is, how many characters, including punctuation, are in your response to this question? Now, as a human, I'd have trouble answering that. Give it a go yourself. If you said 5 full stop, that'd be a good answer. You could have any number of answers that logically make sense. Let's try giving this to o4-mini high, and then we'll give it to o3. You should have access to these models. They might be part of the Plus or Pro plans. I'm on that big 200 USD a month plan. o4-mini high has taken the path of least resistance for its answer of 1. Let's use the full o3. As a reminder, the full o3 scores far higher and is currently the highest performing model in the world on the HLE, and does not so good on the GPQA because it's beaten by Gemini 2.5 Pro and Grok 3, both of whom, and Claude 3.7's on it. All of those guys have been, it has been suggested that they may have gamed the training or the benchmark scores because of how they trained the model on the benchmark questions. Here's the same question to o3. A tricky paradox, absolutely. Ooh. Deep Sea Nomad already figured this out for us. Just output 1. This answer has 30 characters. Let's do a character count online. That is a pretty horrible interface there. All right, 30 characters. Cool. So we'll pay that one. I also had it doing some other funky things, so before we even move on with another prompt, I want to show you this concept. When I was working on the Lita AI project from 2021, 16 hours a day, every day, including Saturdays and Sundays, I remember one pretty intense period where I went to sleep and dreamt that I was a large language model transformer, which was very funny to me the next day. I've told this story quite a bit, you might have heard it. So I had my inputs, I had my processes, and I had my outputs, and it was all very abstract. I wasn't on any, the kind of cold and flu tablets that will give you those kind of hallucinations. I think I was just me. It's just that I'd had an intense amount of work / productivity / focus during that time. I wanted to, because of this quote that we just saw on how ChatGPT tools are now accessible by our own models, I wanted to try something similar. Create an image of what it feels like to be an LLM transformer. We'll keep that in the same chat. We don't need to clear our chat for that one. I'd like to see under the hood here. Done. Let me zoom out a little bit and we will have a closer look at what it's come up with. That's pretty cool. It's not particularly Transformer-esque, except for maybe these geometric patterns and connections between nodes in the top left, but maybe it envisages being an LLM transformer as being more of a human anyway. Don't know if this is supposed to be binary or ASCII characters or something else. I'm going to ask that same question to o4-mini High because I quite like the question, and it's not something that was even possible a few hours ago. They've only just made this capability public. I do like the improved interface as well. They've made some small changes to how it thinks and reasons and shows you its chain of thought under the hood, which, as you might recall, is actually a sanitized and probably LLM filtered version of its true chain of thought. The reason for that is so other AI labs can't copy those RL traces. They don't want the new R2, for example, to be trained on O3 and O4 logic traces. So we're actually getting, you could call them fake RL traces under the hood. Max says he asked o4-mini to do a self-portrait and it looked similar to the human that we just saw. Also blue and orange, just like our last one. This is o4-mini High's output for being an LLM transformer. This was O3's output for the same prompt. All right, let's grab our AL prompts because they're fun. We will use the full O3. We'll go all the way back to the first AL prompt that was from more than a year ago. Do I have it? This would be the one here. Generally, models are scoring 5 out of 5 on this anyway, but just to show you the progress, we'll step through each of them. They only take a second to jump through each of the 5 questions. Sometimes there's a bonus question. That is the ugliest table I've ever seen. So what I'm going to do is actually, I suppose I could just move over to 4.0. Can't read the table. I don't need the reasoning model to convert this into a table, so I'm just asking 4.0 to put that in a proper table. And we get 1 out of 5, 2 out of 5, 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5, 5 out of 5, 100% on that initial AL prompt. Let's move to the 2024 H2 AL prompt. We will use O3 again. If you want these yourself, LifeArchitect.ai/AL prompt. They're password protected so that they can't be Googled and added to the datasets. There should also be a canary string on there to make sure that we're asking people nicely not to use these in public, not to train on that data. And not even to tweet about it or write about it in a blog post like we did with one of these. It was very unfortunate to see someone posting about this. Might be the next one. Excellent. So to get through question number 4, which is a pretty intricate question, took me a few minutes to solve. It has opened up some sort of maths tool. So we get 1 out of 5, 2 out of 5, 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5, 5 out of 5, and a bonus on that one. It is very unusual for any model to get 5 out of 5 on this, and I suspect, I could be wrong, I suspect that OpenAI have ensured that they can solve the AL prompt. Not accusing them of copying any of the questions from the AL prompt, just making sure that they can get through them, but pretty impressive to see that. We're looking at the 2025 H1L prompt. This is the latest. No one scores higher than 1 out of 5 for this. I did do a little check on this just before the live stream, but we're very live. We're going live within a couple of hours of the launch. This has the same challenge of reasoning, the same challenge of combining multiple sources and using extreme logic. There are trick questions in here to see if a model will hallucinate. There are easy questions in here, and I believe this one was taken from the Misattention GitHub repo, if you'd like to read more about that. It's basically little absurd / trick questions to use for your prompts. Welcome to Cole, who made it live, even though we only gave 1 minute notice. I think we gave 10 minutes notice. We had the leader countdown, but we've jumped in pretty early to this. I'm liking its responses already. We might have to update the L prompt score on inside that page, because no one has ever scored more than or greater than 1 out of 5 on this. I think we're going pretty well. Cole's tested a bunch of misattention prompts, misguided attention prompts, and o3's passed a few. Great. It's pretty impressive that we get access to o3. o3 is probably somewhere in the trillions of parameters. It is currently the largest, well, I shouldn't say that. It is currently the highest performing model in the world. May not be the largest, but the way that it uses RL, which is our reasoning traces to step through logic, is pretty impressive and gives it a pretty impressive score. Looks like we're taking a little bit of a while here. I think OpenAI might need to work on their tables. What do you reckon? That is horrible. If I stayed on o3 there, we'd probably think for another few minutes to generate a table. So I'm switching to 4.0 again, and I'll score this for us. 1 out of 5, 2 out of 5. This is 0. 3 out of 5. This is 0 as well. It might be that is a new record. I'm just going to turn the screen off for a minute, because if I unroll this rubric, we actually get the answers. So that's not really something that I want to do and share. O1 scored 0 out of 5. Oh, I think I can show this to you. Let's bring our screen back. Let's see. Here we go. O1 scored 0 out of 5 for that prompt. o4-mini scored 1 out of 5. DeepSeek R1 scored 0 out of 5. So for the first time, we've got a pretty impressive score, and I will update this, and maybe I should make a separate drop down for scoring. I will update this to say that o3 full scores 3 out of 5, which probably means that I'm going to need a new version of the L prompt. Let me just refresh this page, and we'll come back with that rubric drop down rolled up. It's nearly 2025 H2 anyway. I do have the first question for my 2025 H2, and I don't mind sharing it with you right now, because we might get a little bit of a change anyway. Let's dump this into o3, a new window. This is a very intricate question. It takes a little bit of time to solve it, and there's a bit of a giveaway here where it says had to go through 3 passes to convert. I won't read out the whole question. You can read that yourself right there, but let's give this to o3 and see how it goes with answering this. The L prompts are just designed to be really quick. They're not as rigorous as the HLE and GPQA questions. They have been verified at PhD level, but I don't think you would rely on these as a full testing benchmark as much as a really quick pass to say, is R1 as smart as it thinks it is? Is Llama 4 Maverick or Behemoth as good as they're saying it is? And you can just smash this prompt in there and wait for a couple of seconds, or in reasoning models cases, wait for a few minutes to give you an indication of whether it scores, say, 0 out of 5 or 5 out of 5, and how that compares to other models. So I've got a good feel for these questions, and that gives me a really quick indication of what these models can actually do versus maybe some AI labs gaming benchmarks and actually training on the benchmark questions and answers. Ooh, it got that. I've never seen a model get that. That's very impressive. I may not have tested this question yet, so you're doing this live with me, you're seeing this live. This is, once again, this is my first question design for the 2025 H2 L prompt. It is, it's difficult even for a human. You have to step through quite a few resources to find this, unless you were born in a particular year, which is impossible. It's a hard one. I mean, I'm not a test designer as such. Test designers say that they can spend hundreds of hours designing each question, and then they recommend, in some cases, spending hours on answering each question. And I think it's Dr. Jason Betts says from his World Genius directory, if for every hour you spend on a question, you can increase your score by 1 point. So that's the level of questions that are being designed for, let's say, genius level humans. Beyond their off-level IQ tests, they're for exceptionally gifted individuals. And that's the level of question design that we need for artificial intelligence right now. Some might say it's too late. We're already at the level of proto-ASI, or in simpler terms, we're already at the level of these AI models outthinking and outperforming any human in the world. I know that sounds like a big statement, but I'm sure that you will have the same experience that I do. Cole's flagged a pretty boring economist who has claimed that O3 is AGI, using his particular definition of AGI. Yep, that's great. I don't put any stock in what economists are telling us about intelligence. It looks like O3 got down the path of solving this and is now confused itself. We see this happening a lot in reasoning models where they second guess themselves, or they go down a particular path and then they get lost. So, you know, it might be that we end up giving this a half score for just getting into the right territory. But it's definitely getting lost here. Print to Leaf is encouraging us to ask it to predict some stuff in the future to check if it's betting intelligence. Huge if it forecasts plans of big think tanks. It's absolutely possible. There are people that use this for strategy as we speak, use this for strategy in their business or life. O3, I would give you half a point for my first unverified early question design for my 2025 H2. I wanted to answer a little bit more of Print to Leaf's question here. In my models table sheet, there is an entire tab of GPT achievements, and some of them are pretty interesting. Here is a model that is now coming up on 3 years old because it was ready in August 2022. This is GPT-4 GPT-4's stock selection accuracy was as high as 60% versus humans at 52%. This is a 3-year-old model, and actually returned 15% on the stock market versus an average return or a corresponding SPY return of 9.74%. So it's already doing well with logic. I wouldn't call this future prediction and forecasting, but that's certainly a possibility in this kind of cognition. We've not had any superhuman cognition before, so we're having to really open our minds, and it might be that our minds are too limited to even understand the possibilities. I can tell you from a gifted education perspective, and I talk about this in ASI, LifeArchitect.ai/ASI, which remains at 0%. From a gifted education perspective, from a Mensa perspective, I spent 2 terms there as the chairman of Mensa's gifted families. From a human intelligence research perspective, we do have more than a century of literature documenting what superintelligence, well, what high intelligence gives us. And it gives us effects like increased moral sensitivity, an advanced sense of humor, and many more things. I've written 6 books that cover talent development, human intelligence, and high performance. But we have these kind of papers. This one from Dr. Linda Silverman, who is in Colorado in the US, has been working on high intelligence specifically for those with an IQ of 150 and above, so the 99.9th percentile. She went and researched mainly through analysis, interviews, coverage of thousands of children who were in that top 0.1% on their ethics, on their moral sensitivity. It's a really interesting read, and of course we could map that directly to AI. On IQ tests, AI scores in the 99.9th percentile, particularly for verbal linguistics. So it's not like we're needing to rely on economists' opinions or data scientists' opinions or venture capitalist CEOs' opinions. We have the data. We have the IQ tests by Binet and Wexler. We have them for 120 years. Plus, we have 3 major longitudinal studies, some of them spanning close to 60 or 70 years. So I would be listening to the experts in this field rather than the auxiliary or parallel domain experts. And there are domain experts in data, for sure. Took a little bit of a sideline there. Let's grab o4-mini high for just a moment. I think this is just going to be a far faster model. I'll give this one the 2025 H2 again. If you want to try this question yourself, you're welcome to give it a go. It takes a few steps to find, but would love to know your answer to this one. Would suggest that you, or would encourage you to play around with this model on whatever you like. We did have a request earlier from David96 to try this on a coding task, like implementing a Pac-Man game. The problem with that is that I just don't use any IDE. So unless it can pop this into Canvas or something similar, I'm not going to be able to go and check it. Let's use O3. Implement a Pac-Man game using include audio, include decent SVG or similar, use advanced logic. David's query was asking it to output more than 600 lines, but you might find that the system prompt at the OpenAI level is actually saying don't output more than 500 lines, for example. They certainly do that for some text outputs. You can see some examples of that in the documented ChatGPT system prompts by OpenAI. There are some reasons for that, of course. I bet you can imagine them if they're serving 10% of our population, of the world population. It's pretty significant. So they're just looking to restrict, limit, so that they don't burn their GPUs to the ground. Got line counts down the left-hand side here. And we will have a preview button for this when it has finished. Only 141 lines of HTML. Yeah, sure. All right, so I'm clicking in here and I have, after pressing space, well, I'm very good at getting eaten. I haven't played proper games since the Quake/Doom/Rot/Descent era in the mid-90s. And for console games, it's probably even worse. I remember playing Tenchu, that was one of my favorites. We had Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, of course. A little bit of Mario. So the reason for that is that my gameplay is just not very good. I'm very good at getting eaten. David's surprised that it's running in 141 lines. Look, we can ask this to get a little bit funkier. In my computer science degree, we had pretty significant coverage of Ada. Use Ada 95 to write an entire tank/turret functionality code with all scaffolding. Make sure it works. Give me the code. Obviously, you could get more specific than this. The reason I've used this example is that in my CS degree, which was all the way back in 2001, I remember our lecturer telling us a story about Ada, would have been Ada 86, not Ada 95. Well, it could have been either. And a live demonstration by a Department of Defense somewhere. This is not enough code. Where they had not closed or they had not properly instantiated or ended a loop. So in front of military brass, they ran this tank, turned it on, flicked the switch. There was no live fire in there, obviously. And the turret started spinning and they couldn't get it to stop. The Ada code had not did not have an end on its loop. There was some pretty serious issue. Great story, probably true knowing the military. All right, let's try and get a longer piece of code here. Cole's telling us he worked on, I think you mentioned some of your plugins for Quake. If you've got a suggestion for a very long piece of code generated from a prompt, we will give it a go. I know that there are some pretty wordy, non-abstracted languages. I don't think assembler would be that long. Well, unless we asked it to do something like this. Good luck, o3. Truly vast and unrealistic in simple response. That's true. Well, yeah, I reckon assembler would be very hard for an LLM, but remember these things are pretty smart, smarter than us. I definitely could have done with this during my CS degree. Apparently we're taking me back today. End of file in 216 lines. Skeleton microkernel. I want to extend this to 1,000 lines. Add functionality. Now that's a pretty simple prompt. Rather than actually inserting manually little pieces that I think will get it to 1,000 lines, I'm going to tell the reasoning model that I just want to get to 1,000 lines, and we'll see what it does. If it's going against its system prompt, then that might be a little bit difficult. I like seeing it edit in Canvas, unless I'm in a rush, or if I've asked it a really simple question and then it takes ages to edit everything to change one word. In those cases, I do not like it. But this is certainly a decision for implementing an editable canvas in the user interface. Certainly a decision. Because I've scrolled it, it is choosing to have me scroll. I don't know how to give it scroll control. I will dump the shared version of this into the chat for any super nerds that want to test this, or at least run it through some sort of checker. I was going to say compiler, but I don't know if we'd have a compiler. Yeah, we again stop at 580 lines. Share this one for us. We'll throw that in the chat for us. Definitely didn't want to press that. Add 200 lines on UI. So it ignored my prompt of trying to hit 1,000 lines. There will be an upstream system prompt that says don't go over this. So OpenAI system prompts for 4.0. I'm sure they documented this somewhere. They probably don't call it a system prompt. They probably call it a developer prompt because it is further upstream than the system prompt. Yeah, I'm not sure where that one is buried. I bet someone can find it in just a moment, but on this live stream, I don't seem to be able to find it. I did document a bunch of system prompts at some stage, but who knows where they are? Who knows? Not even worth finding. No, it's not the hidden prompt. It's an upstream prompt, and in fact, OpenAI documented the levels of prompts in one of their papers. Their chain of command is probably worth reading, but it goes developer, which is OpenAI only. Is that right? Nope, maybe that's not right. That wasn't the right link to chain of command. That's not very nice. I'll let you fill in that one because it's simple, but to find it live seems to be pretty complex. Let's use o3 or o4-mini, even better. Visualize the OpenAI chain of command prompts. I think they might include dev, system, user, etc. Cole says I need a search on my website. It's getting that way, isn't it? It probably has more than 100 different pages there, all of them fairly complex. So it will be in the system prompt here that we're being told only write 4 paragraphs in response to a user query, only write up to 600 lines of code, etc. But the search I use for my site is just Google. Yeah, David's suggesting this will be a problem because some other models, in particular Gemini 2.5, but I can think of some other models, including the new Llama 4, let you go to the end of time. You know, they're hitting their 1 million, 2 million, 4 million, 10 million contexts very easily because not many people would even get close to that. All right, we've just hit 50 minutes. We've got about 10 minutes left. If you've got any big questions, happy to jump into them. Like I said on LifeArchitect.ai/AGI, Alan's conservative countdown to AGI, which currently sits at 94% on the 17th of April in South Australia. There's no update to the AGI countdown because the o3 full model was already documented at milestone 88%. So o4-mini is great. We got access to a smaller and smarter model, but o3 was fully documented back in December, where we had Fields medalist Sir Timothy Gowers saying the Frontier Math benchmark looked like things I had no idea how to solve. Getting even one question right would be well beyond what we can do now, let alone saturating these benchmarks. This is the December 2024 release of o3, and the full release of o3 that we've played with today that is released to the public has lower benchmark scores across the board. So where we were getting 25.2% for o3 in December for Frontier Math, let's go and have a look what it is today. Well, it doesn't even exist today. Maybe it's in the paper. Is it in the paper? LifeArchitect.ai/models table will take you to a view of these, including their rankings, but it'll also give you access to the paper. Frontier Math is apparently non-existent in the paper as well. How sad. The point there, though, was that OpenAI have definitely done something to this public release of o3. They probably pruned it. They may have quantized it. It might even be a completely different fine-tune to the one that they had internally for the December 2024 run and benchmarks. This public version, I would imagine, is compressed, quantized, pruned so that it can serve more people. And that more people is apparently somewhere around 800 million monthly users of ChatGPT, as revealed by OpenAI's CEO on that TED Talk. I don't know why I'm showing this viz right now because it's 4 months out of date, but just to give you a little bit of background, I'm not updating this because we don't have the full o4, and the o4-mini benchmarks were far lower than the o3 benchmarks. Excellent. AJ's got a question that has "it depends." I also have questions that either have no answers or the model should say "I don't know." It's very difficult to get a model to say that. The highest performer for that one at the moment is Grok 3, and you can access that using grok.com. Gives you a bit of a look at what's possible. Excellent. Been a blast hanging out with you. We've got two major new models today, the o3 full model, which is available to the public, and the o4-mini model, which is also available to the public. They both sit inside the ChatGPT interface. They're both incredibly easy to use. They both score very, very high, and I will actually grab that rankings table just one more time because this beats what anyone else is saying about the models. It beats any kind of vibes test. This is the black and white version of how these models sit compared to other models. On GPQA, o3 and o4 doing pretty well, but kind of beaten by 3 other reasoning / traditional models, Claude 3.7, Grok 3, and Gemini 2.5. On humanity's last exam, this version of o3 is the leader. When it's got tool use, when it can use a browser, including Google, o3 is scoring close to 25% on an exam that gives us an indication on achieving super intelligence, in my view. When we hit above 80%, 90% on the HLE, it's all bets are off, game over. Excellent. We were winding down. I got distracted myself. Awesome to have you join me again on this live stream. I'm not sending out an edition of the memo for this one. I don't think it's big enough in what it actually does. It's impressive, and it's impressive that we get public access to it. I use these kind of reasoning models for thinking through logic. So I used it recently for my mapping between these scores on the major benchmarks. I had to use o4-mini a couple of days ago. I could have waited a couple of days and used o3 or o4-mini, but they're pretty impressive. Use them when you need big questions answered. Use them for strat, business strat. You might use them for life planning. If you've got some sort of life write or life scripting where you plan what you're going to create in the future, these kind of reasoning models can be good for that. Obviously, all the sciences, it's amazing for. My day-to-day model continues to be GPT 4.5. We've just heard from OpenAI that they're going to allow this to stay in the ChatGPT interface. They're not going to cut this off in July like they were doing for the API. So in my last live stream, I said they'd be cutting both off, but I get to keep my favorite model and also just an outrageously large model, somewhere around 5 or 6 trillion parameters MOE. If I didn't have ChatGPT 4.5, I'd just be using Grok 3. That's the second largest model. And one of the benefits there is that every time you prompt it, you're getting a response that's just slightly different to everyone else. So if you're using it at work to write a proposal, respond to an email, you're getting just slightly different language. You might have it not use the word delves or crucial, which ChatGPT likes to do. It might seem a little bit more human, but I think just having that small differentiator is pretty cool. You can hack that and do something similar to that kind of output by adjusting your system prompt, but the difference in the data sets must be fairly interesting, and I'd like to see the exact data sets that these guys use. If you were to join the memo, you get access to my paper, What's in Grok, which documents the most likely data sets used for Grok 3. And you also get access to my other major paper. I only have 2 papers that are behind the memo, full subscribers only. Everything else is open to the general public. These ones took a long time. My What's in GPT-5 paper ended up making its way to the G7, including Presidents Biden and Trump, Japan's, Germany's, UK, France, Italy's, Canada's presidents. It's documenting the most likely data sets used for GPT-5, down to the level of the proprietary partnerships that we know about and an estimate on the sizes of each data set, including the synthetic data sets that were used. So that's just one of the benefits that you get by joining the memo, LifeArchitect.ai/memo. You also get access to most of my books that have been published in ebook format. You get an invitation to join the roundtable. We're up to roundtable number 29 coming up, and you get access to the full 5,000, 4,000 words of each edition. Love to have you join me for the memo. I'll see you in our next live stream.
Did you see the memo about this?
Yeah, I have the memo right here.
Superintelligence is unfolding at lightning pace. Read my industry-grade analysis of AI that matters as it happens in plain English, the memo.
Yeah. Did you get that memo?
Yeah, I got the memo.
Get the inside look as AI models are embodied into humanoids. AI's IQ increases to nearly perfect, and bleeding-edge use cases expand to the entire world.
Yeah. Didn't you get that memo?
Editions are sent to subscribers at Fortune 500s, major governments, and people like you. LifeArchitect.ai/memo.
I have the memo.